We've all had it happen. Think about the last time you were talking to someone, telling them a story. They just stared at you with a blank face. No visible emotions, no words, nothing. You couldn't tell if they understood, agreed, or were even interested. How did you feel? Frustrated? Annoyed, maybe? At the very least, you probably wondered if they were even paying attention. So you asked something like, you know what I mean? Or maybe you just came right out and asked, are you listening to me? That's the exact feeling people in crisis get when we stay silent too long without giving them any kind of feedback. Today, I'll show you how to use minimal encouragers, small signals that keep people talking and open doors you didn't even know were closed. I'm Troy Seward, retired police lieutenant and CIT trainer. I use my 30 years of law enforcement experience to teach officers how good communication can stabilize mental health crisis calls and lead to resolution. In previous videos, we've discussed open-ended questions and effective silence. But here's the problem. If you ask a great open-ended question and then sit there for too long with nothing but a blank face, the silence stops helping. The other person starts to feel ignored, frustrated, or even disrespected. The same way you would feel if someone stared at you blankly. And once that happens, it's hard to rebuild trust on the scene. So, how do you keep the silence working for you instead of against you? That's where minimal encouragers come in. They're small actions that say, I'm listening, keep going. And they can be verbal or nonverbal. They're simple, but surprisingly powerful. They can completely change how a conversation unfolds. Let's start with verbal minimal encouragers. They're short responses that fit the flow of the conversation. Nothing fancy, just small cues that show you're listening and make it easier for the other person to open up. Some examples are phrases like, okay, I see, go on, really? Seriously? Or, oh, you'll see it work when they start talking again. Now with a little more energy, like they feel you understand. The key is that your tone must be calm and sincere, not approving or impatient. Here's an example. Someone tells you, man, if you only knew the way they treat me around here. You might give a look of concern and say, really? With a deep exhale, they proclaim, oh my God, yes, and begin telling you everything they're upset about. That's the goal, to keep them talking so you can learn what's really going on. I've seen this exact thing play out countless times. The moment someone feels understood, the whole conversation changes direction. Be careful not to overuse them, though. Stacking encouragers, saying them quickly, one after the other. Yeah, yeah, okay, right. Especially with the wrong tone, can sound dismissive and escalate someone. So instead, drop them into your conversation naturally, every few sentences, just enough to show you're engaged. Now, let's shift from what you say to what you do, the nonverbal minimal encouragers. They're small physical actions that say, I'm engaged in the conversation. Things like nodding your head yes or no, leaning in slightly as they're talking to show interest, tilting your head to show curiosity, or showing an appropriate facial expression in response to what you just heard. Expressions like surprise, concern, or confusion. Here's another example. Someone tells you about how their significant other just left them. You exhale, give a slow head shake, and look down for a second. Those actions show not only that you are engaged, but also that you understand their situation. Whether verbal or nonverbal, the purpose of minimal encouragers is the same: to show you're engaged and willing to listen, not disinterested or judgmental. If this kind of tactical communication training helps, hit like so other officers can find it too. So here's why this all matters. When people feel like you're genuinely listening, they keep talking. And the more they talk, the more you'll learn. That information helps you resolve the call more effectively and with confidence. So how do we effectively use minimal encouragers? Let's break it down, because knowing why it works is one thing, but using it effectively on a call is another. On scene, you'll use minimal encouragers both while someone is speaking and after they finish. When they're talking, small actions like nodding your head or short words. Okay, I see. Really? Let them know you're following along and encourage them to keep talking. When they pause, you can still use them to keep the conversation going while practicing effective silence, the skill we covered last time. But remember, tone and timing both matter. You want to use minimal encouragers just enough to show you're listening without interrupting the flow. Be careful not to overuse them though. Stacking encouragers, saying them quickly or with an impatient tone, can sound dismissive and actually make things worse. I've made that mistake before. I thought I was showing interest, but the other person heard impatience and they got irritated fast. So instead, just use them every now and then, enough to keep the conversation moving. When you do this right, three things happen. The person keeps talking, so you get more information. You show empathy without saying, I understand, which often sounds forced and insincere. And the person feels heard, which builds rapport and increases voluntary compliance. It's a small skill, but it has a big payoff on crisis calls. So remember, minimal encouragers, both verbal and nonverbal, show that you're listening and engaged. Help the other person keep talking, get you more information, and help you build rapport. Right on your next shift. After someone responds to your open-ended question, give a simple nod or a curious, really? While they're speaking, and watch what happens. My guess, they'll keep talking, you'll get better information, and the scene will move toward resolution instead of resistance. If this helped, hit subscribe and join my free monthly email, The Insightful Responder, for more practical tools you can use on your very next shift. Next time, we'll build on this with clarification questions. How to get clear early, earn trust faster, and keep the call moving in the right direction. Until next time, stay safe and train to respond, not just react, so you can influence the outcome when it matters most.